Hi, I'm Andy Neal, and this is a Motion Time Saver tutorial. This time I'm going to make a video wall, but we'll nice it up with a cool little 3D camera move. Once upon a time, this kind of project would really take a long time because of all the video elements that are required, and it would slow my computer down to a crawl. But thankfully, in Motion, there's a trick that will allow us to use only one video element, and we won't even have to add it until the end. I'm going to start with a 720p sequence. Go to the library and select Content. In the search bar, type Drop, and immediately the search omits any content that doesn't contain the word drop. This is a very handy way to search for elements when you're not really sure where they're located. Find the drop zone HD and drag it into the Layers pane. This will be the placeholder for our video. I'll mention now that we need to be in Final Cut later, but I'm assuming that you know how to knock together a quick sequence. Label the group Monitor. So we have our drop zone, but that doesn't mean it's a drop zone. Confused? You see, all we actually did was place a still image in our project called drop zone. It's not on its own a drop zone. To make it one, you have to select the Image tab in the inspector and check the drop zone button. Now any footage that you place in the drop zone will behave properly. Next, I want to stylize my drop zone a bit by masking the corners. Go up to the Mask Shape tool and choose the Circle Mask. Beginning at the upper left corner, click and draw a mask so that it covers the entire frame. This is a little too oval for me, so I'm going to adjust it, but it's a really good starting point. In the Selection tool, click and hold it down to reveal the other edit tools. Second from the bottom is the Edit Points tool. Select it and click one of the mask points. Now to do this properly, make sure that snapping is on. Go up to View and select Snap, or else hit N on your keyboard. Grab hold of one of these Bezier handles and drag all the way to the edge of the frame. Repeat with the other side. Go around the mask and repeat this step with all 4 edit points. By dragging to the edge of the frame, you're creating a sort of rounded rectangle, and the snapping ensures that the rounded corners are all even. When you're finished, it'll look like this. In the Mask tab in the inspector, crank the blur up to about 20 or so. This will keep the edges of the video monitor from being too sharp. Good! Now we're ready to create our video wall. Create a new group and make it a 3D group. Label it Video Wall. Select the drop zone and click the Replicate button or hit L on the keyboard. Now before you ask, I have no idea why they made L the shortcut for Replicate. Maybe it stands for lots. At first it's hard to see what happened. That's because the element that we replicated is the size of the frame. Drag the replicator into the video wall group. There's a reason that I want to keep the replicator in a separate group from the object that we're replicating, but I'll cover that later. With the replicator selected, go to the Replicator tab and under the Scale parameter, bring it down to about 19%. Go back to the Selection tool and this time select the one at the bottom. This is called, ambiguously enough, the Adjust Item tool. With regards to a replicator, it's a way to adjust the size and the position of the replicator shape. By default, this shape is a rectangle, and that's what we want anyways, but it could be a line, or a circle, or a wave, or any other shape. Grab one of the corner points and drag it out to the edge of the frame. This will spread out the replicated drop zones so that we have a nice, even video wall. Now if you don't need 25 video monitors, you can increase or decrease that number by changing the column and row parameters in the Replicator tab. I kind of like it this way though, so I'm going to leave it. Click the Camera button to add a camera. Notice that you don't get the usual warning to switch your project to 3D. This is because you already have at least one 3D layer in your project. Go to the Camera tab. I'm not a big fan of the default camera angle of 45 degrees, so I'm going to increase it to about 55. Then go to the Properties tab and adjust the position and the rotation until you get the video wall where you want it. Okay, so this is where I want to end up, but I think it'd be nice to have a little camera move to get here. With the camera selected, go up to Behaviors and choose Camera, Sweep. Hit End to go to the end of the project. Notice that your wall is no longer in the right place. This is because the default sweep behavior rotates the camera 30 degrees off of its current position. In the Behaviors tab, change the end parameter to 0. Hit Home on the keyboard to go to the start of the timeline and adjust the start parameter until the video wall is on the other side of the frame. If you scrub the timeline, you can watch the camera move. Not bad, but let's add a dolly move as well. Now a dolly is a move where you place the camera on a straight or curved track and you push it like a little train towards or away from your subject. Go up to Behaviors and choose Camera, Dolly. Now we want to push into our video wall, so to do that we need to be further away from the subject to begin with. With the playhead still on the first frame in the timeline, go to the Properties tab of the camera and adjust the Z parameter to pull away from the subject. Now hit End to go to the end of your project and adjust the distance parameter of the dolly behavior until it's back where it belongs. Well, this didn't exactly do what I wanted. The video wall is out of position again. This has to do with how I approached moving the 3D camera. To illustrate what's really going on here, go to the Camera View tab and choose Top. This is a top-down view of our scene. It's impossible to see the video wall because we're looking at it on its edge, so grab the Orbit tool and move it just a little bit so that we're still looking down, but that the video wall is visible. Also, you may want to reposition this view so that you can see both the camera and the wall. Do this by holding down the Command key and using plus or minus to zoom in or out. I'm zooming out. Then, if you hold down the space bar and click and drag in the window, you can center everything up. You're not changing anything about the camera or the wall, you're just adjusting the view so that you can see it all better. Now, depending on how much you use cameras in your normal workflow, what you see from this angle may be different. Go to the View button and make sure that the following things are on: 3D Overlays, 3D View Tools, and 3D Scene Icons. They should all be checked. Also, check the animation path in your regular overlays section as well. Now there should be a little red line showing you the path of the camera. The first thing I notice is that the orientation of the camera is actually centered around its viewing plane instead of the camera itself. This is the default, and it's called a framing camera. That means that when we rotate or otherwise adjust the position of the camera, it will orbit around what it's looking at. You can illustrate this by turning off the behaviors for a moment and scrubbing the Y rotation. The other type of camera motion is called a viewpoint camera. You can select it in the Camera tab of the inspector. Now, when you adjust the Y rotation, you see that the camera spins as if it were sitting on a tripod. For this project, I want a viewpoint camera. To see how its animation looks, I'm going to add a second view. To the right of the View button is the View Layout button. Click the drop-down and choose the third from the top. This splits the viewer in half horizontally. Make sure that the top view is selected. There will be a little yellow box around it. Use the Command plus and minus keys and the spacebar shortcut we used earlier to reposition the top view. In the bottom view, select Active Camera and then turn the behaviors back on. As you can see, I'm still not getting the animation that I want. This is because I applied the sweep behavior first. The dolly behavior is dependent upon the relative angle of the camera's rotation, which is being decided by the sweep behavior. So the dolly move doesn't just go towards the video wall, it curves. Now grab the sweep behavior and drag it above the dolly behavior. Look at that. Now the dolly move is applied first and is a straight line, and the sweep behavior only pans the camera around, not the dolly move. This is what we were looking for. I wanted to show you this so that you can understand that in some cases, which behavior you apply first affects the overall outcome. If you want the camera to dolly along a curved track, then the sweep behavior must come first. If not, the dolly behavior must come first. Well, we've good and messed up our animation, so let's start over. In the Behaviors tab of the camera, click this little curved arrow next to the sweep and dolly behaviors. This will reset them to their default values. Do the same with the Transform section of the Properties tab. Let's start by moving the camera away from the video wall. With the camera selected, click and drag the blue arrow to back the camera up. Take it to about here. You may have to reposition the view again so that you can see everything. Continue to adjust the position and the rotation parameters either by using the interface in the view or with the parameters in the Properties tab. When you have your starting point set, hit End to go to the end of your project. Notice the wall moved to the other side of the frame. Remember, this is because we reset the behaviors to their defaults, and the sweep behavior has a default 30 degrees applied to it. Don't worry about it for right now. In the Behaviors tab, adjust the distance in the dolly move until you're at your ending point. Adjust the end angle of the sweep to get the angle you want. If it's not lined up exactly as you want it, you can tweak it by adjusting the Y rotation in the Properties tab. This will swing your dolly track away from the wall like a pendulum. Just keep tweaking the Y rotation plus the sweep angle and the distance until you get the look that you want. Now that you understand how the camera and the behaviors work, you can easily get the move that you're looking for. When you're finished, select the active view in the window and then go back to the view layouts and return to the single view. You should make sure that the starting position hasn't been upset by your tweaking. If it has, adjust the start angle on the sweep behavior to get it looking good again. The last thing about the camera move is that it's the entire length of the project. I actually want it to move into place and then hold there. But that's the easy part. Just place the playhead where you want the move to stop, and then select both behaviors and hit O to move the out point to where the playhead is. After a quick RAM preview, I like the length of the move, but not the sudden start and stop of it. Go back to the Behaviors tab and change the speed of both behaviors to ease both. This will create a slow start and a slow finish to the move, which is like a real dolly move. Alright, this looks good. Now we can finish up our video wall. I want to do one more thing to this wall before we add our video. I don't like that it looks like it's just floating there in the darkness. I want to simulate a floor by giving the wall a reflection. Go to anywhere after your animation finishes in the timeline. I'm going to be creating clones and shapes and masks, and I want to be able to see the result close up. Go to the Preferences in your Motion menu. Click on Project and select the button that says Create Layers at Start of Project. Close the preferences. Now, no matter where your playhead is, anything that you add to the project will be added at the first frame. Normally I don't like to do this, but I do in this case. Select the replicator and hit K on the keyboard to clone it. Drag it above our video wall group and release so that it's placed into its own group. Name it Reflection. Clones are always put at the 0 position even if the item that you're cloning has been moved. Now we didn't move anything except the camera, so the clone appears right on top of our replicator. Drag the clone's Y position down until it's below the video wall. In the X rotation, type 180 to flip the clone upside down. You can also achieve this by typing -100 into the scale parameter. Now, a reflection is not crystal clear, so we have to muddy this up a bit. First, we'll add a mask so that the reflection slowly falls away. Select the reflection group. Right-click and choose Isolate. Now this is a really cool command to use when you're working on elements that are being viewed in perspective due to having a camera in your scene. Isolate brings your clone front and center so that you can work more easily. Go to the Shape tool and select the rectangle shape. Draw a rectangle that completely encapsulates the clone. In the Shape tab, change the color of the fill to gradient. Click on the Shape Styles button and choose Grayscale from the menu. This gives you a basic black and white gradient. If you want to adjust the way the gradient looks, go to the Selection tool, click and hold it down, and choose the wonderfully vague Adjust Item tool again. With the replicator, it allowed us to reposition this and resize the replicator shape. Here, it allows us to adjust the gradient. Adjust the sections roughly to what you think you want. Select the Reflections group and hit Command-Shift-M to set an image mask. Drag the rectangle into the source well of the image mask, or just drop it on top of the mask layer. This uses the rectangle as the information for the mask. However, nothing has happened. This is because the image mask defaults to looking for an alpha layer information. In the Mask tab, change the source channel to luminance, and voila, the gradient provides a nice fading reflection. Now, here's where you can make finer adjustments, if you like, to your gradient. Simply select the rectangle and the Adjust Item tool, and when you adjust the gradient, the image mask updates. Okay, this looks good. One last thing. Reflections on a floor aren't sharp, so I'm going to add some blur to this clone. Go to Filters, Blur, Gradient Blur. Now, if you still have an Adjust Item tool selected, you'll see two tiny little crosses to indicate the sharp and blurry ends of the spectrum. Move the sharp end to the middle of the clone and just above the top row of monitors, and move the blurry side down close to the end of the visible monitors. You can also adjust the blur amount. I think I'll bring it down to about 5. Now that I'm done with the reflection, just click this little isolate icon to return to our normal view. Awesome. Now we're finally ready for our video. For that, I'm going to switch over to Final Cut Pro. Aside from the fact that you need to find 25 different videos for your video wall now, there are a couple of things that you need to do so that you can pull this effect off. First and foremost, all the video elements have to be longer than the overall length of the video wall effect. Now, I want my effect to be 6 seconds long, or 180 frames. That means that I need 25 videos of at least 6 seconds in length. The other really important part is that each video clip has to be cut to the exact same length. That means if the first video is 6 seconds, then all 25 need to be 6 seconds. And it goes without saying, but I'm saying it anyways, that the Final Cut sequence you create needs to be the same frame rate as the motion sequence, or you'll completely mess the whole thing up and blow up your computer. Well, maybe not that, but you'll be plenty pissed off. Now I went ahead and created my sequence ahead of time. I simply laid 25 clips, each of them 6 seconds long, end after end in a single timeline. The total running time is 2 minutes 30 seconds, give or take a few frames. In addition, I also created this sequence of the same length that contains numbers in it instead of video elements. This is to illustrate what's happening in motion when we try this little trick. Export your video out of Final Cut as a self-contained QuickTime file, and then we're done with Final Cut. Back in motion, find your file and just drop it onto the drop zone. Well, now there's video in all the monitors, but it's the same piece of video. Let's fix that. Select the replicator, and in the inspector, down near the bottom is a slider for Source Frame Offset. This tells the replicator to offset the start position for each monitor by a certain number of frames. If each one of your clips is 6 seconds long, then you need to set the offset to 6 seconds long, or 180 frames. See, now we have the first clip in the center, but only 2 total clips are showing. One of the problems is the length of our project. My entire project is only 300 frames, or 10 seconds long. When I imported my video clip in, it was cropped to that length. Select the drop zone layer, and in the Properties tab, twirl open the timing parameter. Notice that it says 10 seconds for the duration. Hold Shift down and click and drag to the right until all the frames are showing. It's closer, but still not right. Select the replicator again and go up to the origin parameter and change it to upper left. Then, under Build Style, choose By Row. This puts the video into the monitors in sequence from left to right and top down. One last thing regarding this project. Remember at the beginning, I told you to keep the drop zone in its own group separate from the replicator? Select the layer, right-click, and choose Solo. The reason to keep this layer separate is in case you wanted to make any changes to the mask or otherwise add anything that would affect all the video monitors. Keeping it separate makes these changes easier when you've already done a bunch of work in 3D and otherwise resize or reposition the other layers. It's nice to know I can return to this basic shape by soloing the layer. I'll just finish up this project by adding the Bad TV filter to the drop zone. It's under Filters, Stylize, Bad TV. I'm just looking for some scan lines, so turn the waviness and the roll to 0, the color sync to 1, and the saturate to 0. Also, bump up the line thickness to 20 and the distance to 30. And then drop the mix to about 50 so that it's not too overpowering. Right-click the monitor layer to turn off the soloing, and then turn off the monitor layer so it disappears from our scene. And now, all our video has cool scan lines. I'll just replace my numbers now with my actual video. At this point, it's only fair to mention that you might have real trouble with motion being sluggish. This is because replicating a 2.5 minute sequence 25 times takes up a lot of the processing power of the graphics card. For me, I have to use time-lapse and editing trickery to finish this in a timely manner. Don't worry if motion is slow at this point. You're really done. That's why I waited till the end to drop the video in the project. If you find you still have more work animating or treating the project, there are a few things that you can do to speed things up. One is to go into the Replicator tab, and at the bottom where it says Show Objects As, change this from Image to Wireframe. The other thing you can do is select the drop zone and either select a more manageable duration such as 300 frames while you're doing your work, or else click on the drop down menu beside the media parameter and reset the video wall to the drop zone picture. The good news is that rendering out the file doesn't take all that much time. There you go. One very cool video wall complete with reflection and 3D animation. I'm Andy Neal, and this has been a Motion Time Saver tutorial.